Well, hello, and thank you for tuning in to today's webinar, Connecting Robots Everywhere. My name is Rob Monkman. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Teal, and we're so glad that you can join us. We're looking forward to discussing how eSIM technology is enabling the future of robotics. Today's webinar is brought to you by Teal, a wholly owned, patented, GSMA-compliant eSIM platform that connects any IoT device onto any network worldwide. And it's my pleasure to introduce today's hosts, Alejandro Blanco and Dean Wall. Alejandro is a sales engineer. He's a professional with experience in various roles, from support to solutions in the IoT industry. Based in Miami, Florida, Alejandro has collaborated with thousands of IoT companies in the field, and his extensive interactions have equipped him with a deep understanding of diverse use cases and industry-specific challenges. Dean is a seasoned IoT specialist with 25 years of telecom industry experience. Dean provides consultative support on the IoT ecosystem of partners to include module selection, antenna, contract manufacturers, eSIM, and wireless carrier profiles. I'm excited for today's webinar, and I'll turn it over to Dean, who will kick things off for us today. And of course, we're not advancing. There we go. Actually, just really quick before I do that, Dean, a quick high-level overview of some of the things that we'll be discussing today. So one, we're going to review some of the common connectivity challenges that many robotics companies face, whether they're here in North America or around the world. We're going to give an introduction to Teal and our platform. And then we're going to dive into a use case because there's nothing better than seeing technology in the wild and how it's actually benefiting and helping customers today. We're going to go into a brief history of eSIM, the benefits of eSIM for robotics, and then we'll open it up for a question and answer session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dean. Dean, you can take it from here.
Great. Thanks so much, Rob. Many of you who've turned into this webinar today are likely experiencing one of many or several connectivity challenges that we see on an everyday basis with some of our customers. Some of these challenges could be the fact that you're dealing with poor availability or roaming restrictions. We've all dealt with issues of higher latency, dropped calls, higher costs as it relates to roaming. Some of you may be losing time and money. Maybe you're managing multiple contracts and multiple connectivity vendors just to make sure you have a reliable connectivity, or maybe having to physically swap out SIMs in the field to make sure that your devices, your robots, are connected at all times. These truck rolls or RMA replacements will mitigate any company's ability to scale. We frequently run into the issue of redundancy, how are customers like you preparing for network sunsets, upgrades, outages, and we're going to get into how eSIM solves all of these common connectivity challenges today. Because like you, we understand these challenges. Many of us have lived and breathed the world of IoT, and we know that these challenges are real. And at Teal, we believe in a world where you should have the freedom to choose the network that your robots are connected to. You should have ultimate flexibility and control. With Teal, we've actually put our customers in control of the profile identity. We've got more network operator agreements in place than any other connectivity provider. We can connect you directly onto many of the leading carriers such as AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon here in North America, as well as many of the other leading carriers across the world, providing those connectivity services in 196 countries with a platform that provides the users with identity management that you control. One customer that I'm particularly proud of helping out is one of the leading robot delivery services that is operating not just here in North America, but worldwide. Starship Technologies is the world's leading robot delivery services on college campuses and cities. The company is revolutionizing deliveries with autonomous robots that are designed to deliver food, groceries, and packages locally in minutes. Keeping their delivery robots reliably and securely connected is critical to maintaining continuity of operations as the company plans to expand into new markets. With robots in operation around the world, Starship has complexities associated with determining which mobile network operators will perform best at any given site. Prior to utilizing Teal, Starship had no way to program their robots onto multiple networks with a single SIM solution. Instead, they used several SIM vendors across different geographies, and they faced challenges associated with managing agreements with multiple SIM SKUs and platforms and pricing schemas. Prior to using, eSIM technology from Teal, Starship experienced high latency and low throughput on business-grade SIM cards that accessed retail networks. With eSIM technology, Starship gains access to any global network with a single eSIM, coupled with a management platform that ensures that their robots are always connected. Teal is helping to accelerate Starship's global expansion by eliminating the complexities of working with multiple mobile network operators and streamlining the supply chain with a single eSIM SKU. Teal eSIM platform offers better availability and improved performance, giving Starship programmable access to native core networks. With Teal, Starship can switch dynamically over the air between a carrier network when needed. This, of course, saves both time and money, eliminating the need for truck rolls and RMA replacements. Starship also benefited from the improved redundancy, as Teal provides both primary and backup credentials with IoT packet core latency below 100 milliseconds round trip, allowing Starship's robots to perform flawlessly. Now that we've reviewed how we've helped Starship Technologies, let me turn it over to Alejandro to discuss in depth how Teal can support companies just like yours to make the switch to Teal eSIM.
All right, thank you, Dean and Rob. Hi, everybody. So I want to start out talking about eSIM as a standard. eSIM was first introduced in 2016, the standard, and since its inception, we witnessed quite a remarkable increase in eSIM adoption, and it's been primarily driven by Apple in the consumer space. Even if you totally ignore the benefits of eSIM, in terms of future growth, Apple's recent doubling down on eSIM, combined with their market share in the consumer space and their influence, means that we're almost certainly just seeing the beginning of eSIM adoption, especially for consumer devices. But what about eSIM for IoT? Even though the M2M standard predates the consumer standard, adoption has been slower, and even today, most eSIM connectivity providers selectively implement parts of the spec or ignore it altogether. But why? So the problem often lies in the differing opinions on eSIM for IoT. These are largely based on users' experiences with eSIM products that vary significantly between different providers. And even though they all use the term eSIM, eSIM marketing has really outpaced the eSIM spec, and IoT users have been left confused and unsure about whether their experience can be improved by integrating other components into their solution. And this has led to fragmentation in the industry, and this really hasn't been a benefit to end users and OEMs. So before we dive into the definition of eSIM, I thought it would be interesting to explore what eSIM should ideally be. So, over the years, I've worked with a lot of IoT users and companies, and opinions certainly vary, but I'll attempt to highlight some of the key features that stand out to me and some of the insights that I've gathered over the years and kind of how we address them at Teal. So these are advantages that I've seen a lot of people ask for. These are things that I've seen people ask for over the years, and what they would like to see eSIM provide them as OEMs and end users. So the primary advantage is the ability to profile switch, right? This allows the SIM card and subsequently the device to adopt a new identity. This feature is invaluable in various situations, including outage prevention through redundant access, coverage adjustments due to device relocation, external factors like storm-induced tower damage, as well as things like cross-border scenarios. And the main reason that many users don't want to enable profile switching, the main reason that many users want to enable profile switching, especially for our robotics partners, is the ability to optimize for performance. And while this is true for most robotics customers, every robot is a little different. So at the end of the day, optionality and flexibility is key, right? So some robots, such as the food delivery robots that Dean was talking about, generally operate in densely populated areas, and they might want to optimize for latency, QCI by using a native credential. But we also have customers, right, that operate, for example, agricultural robots in the Dakotas, and they're probably going to want to optimize for coverage by accessing as many networks as possible on the same credential through aggregation. And being able to have both of those is only really available if you have that flexibility to be able to add whatever profile you want. So the second is the ability to access native credentials. We've heard this for a long time, at least I have in the industry. You know, and at Teal, we define a native credential as any credential that grants you direct access to the MNO's core network as if you were a standard subscriber to that MNO. So native credentials offer benefits in latency, QCI, and typically prove to be the most cost-effective option in any given market. Most IoT service providers really only provide roaming credentials, while Teal's marketplace consists of both native and third-party credentials. The way, you know, the best way to think of this and the way we think of it is essentially a marketplace of networks, similar to an app store. So I've noted GSMA compliant here because this is very important, right? The GSMA through its eSIM working group have been the guiding light for the technical specifications that we all follow. I don't think I have to stress the importance of a common standard, especially when you're hosting user cellular credentials, carrier cellular credentials. The security aspect of the certification is huge. And it's usually a barrier for MVNOs who have to look to other eSIM platform providers and rent out their platforms. And while this is totally fine, at Teal, we took a slightly different approach and we built and certified our own M2M and consumer spec sites, both situated in the United States. All right, this one is huge, and it's the main reason why a lot of IoT service providers and IoT users have a bad perception of IoT eSIM. You're going to hear from some folks that it's not stable, right? And when Teal was founded, our CEO created the company in a large part in frustration with his experiences working with some of the earliest true eSIM platforms, which were mainly dedicated to the automobile sector. And it's true, eSIM for IoT was not reliable back then, in large part due to issues with SMS and the IoT devices themselves. Teal built a patented solution on top of the GSMA standard, fully compliant, which stabilized profile delivery and made it repeatable and reliable. And finally, we have control. And this is because if you implement 1 through 4, that's great. But OEMs and end users want to do all this themselves. They want the 21st century, push a button, get your native credential experience, no waiting for tickets or having to check devices to see if something happened on them and they can send them out or not. So at Teal, we provide full control to our users without the need to contact us whatsoever. So I talked a little bit about what I think, true eSIM entails and how we work towards that at Teal. But I think for the participants of the webinar and for the folks that are going to view this later, it would be beneficial to comprehend other eSIM solutions available in the market to identify key similarities and differences. So we talked a little bit about access and the different credential types. We like to envision Teal's approach as an app store for carriers. We believe this is intuitive and it's an accurate representation of the true eSIM concept. And a lot of the folks talking about eSIM are going to use something called a multi-IMSI applet. So this is okay. It's important to understand what this is, right? This is an automated applet that switches routing, usually only for third-party routing credentials, automatically according to rules on the SIM. And the thing is, this logic is usually built in stone, so it decays over time. While initially this seems like an okay alternative as it's automated, I'll explain it a little bit while this falls short in the long term. And I just want to make clear that at Teal, we download profiles as needed to the SIM card. So we also provide users the ability to switch themselves anytime. And thanks to not running a core MVNO network, we don't create another single point of failure. We're strictly a credentialing platform, right? And then the best pricing here is key, right? While having a profile with every single carrier in the world on it sounds ideal, the reality is that it's cost prohibitive for most users, right? Most use cases. So will you ever send a device to Mozambique? Well, we hope so, right? Because then business is probably going pretty well. But the reality is that you're probably going to be better off not enabling that local service unless you really need it, right? And certainly not for 100% of your devices that you sell. So this is where multi-IMSI and other eSIM alternatives fall short, and where Teal shines. If you remember the robot use cases from before, why should they pay more to keep both credentials on the eSIM when they can just dynamically provision whatever specific profiles with whatever specific pricing they want, right? So that's the unique value proposition that our IoT users and especially our robotics users love about Teal, and why we at Teal love True eSIM. So back to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Alejandro. Teal eSIM really, as the slide says, sets you free, right? We provide you the capability using our identity management platform to not be locked into MNO agreements, giving you total control to choose the identity of the carrier MNO that you want to install on that SIM, either that be AT&T natively, Verizon, or T-Mobile natively onto the eSIM, or you're looking for another credential of another carrier anywhere across the world. So Teal saves you time and money. You don't have to juggle multiple carrier SIMs with multiple different platforms and various different pricing schema. You have the true control of a real eSIM platform, an identity management platform that allows you to control the identity all with a single SIM SKU, streamlining your supply chain, as well as being able to have one pricing scheme as well from Teal to support you globally. And yep, as I said, complementary to the mobile network operators. This is really a key point here, is that with multi-IMSI providers and mobile virtual network operators and those companies that provide roaming credentials are really they're providing roaming credentials that have high latency, and they are not complementary to the mobile network operator, where Teal itself is directly partnered with the mobile network operator. And that's the native credentials that we talked about on today's call, of being able to directly utilize the first ever GSMA compliant eSIM that is natively connected to AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile. And Teal continues to deploy new network credentials across the world that are native connectivity, giving more power and control to the user to have the experience of an MNO SIM, but on an eSIM that you can control the identity without having to swap SIMs between multiple MNOs and do that juggle and RMA type of replacement. So freedom and control is truly what Teal brings to the table, where an MVNO SIM, you are again reliant on a third party to give you what they believe is the steerage and the routing of the carriers. You're putting the control in their hands. Teal, with our platform as an identity management, allows our partners with full control of determining the identity that you wish to install on the SIM that is going to provide you the best connectivity for your customers. I'll turn it to you, Rob.
Well, there you have it. With eSIM technology from Teal, you no longer need to manage contracts with multiple connectivity vendors. You're protected against sunsets and outages. You have ultimate flexibility and control to connect your robots or any device onto any network worldwide. This translates into fast deployments of your robots anywhere in the world. So please find out if eSIM technology is a fit with your business, and be sure to schedule time to meet with one of our experts. You can use this email here. You can also find out more about Teal at tealcom.io. And we're ready and eager to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. I would ask that if you have any questions, I'm going to stop sharing. If you could put it in the chat. We've got our experts here with Dean and Alejandro, who can go as deep and as technical as we need to on this call. So I'll stop the share here and open up the chat for some Q&A. Don't be shy. Well, I wanted to bring up one point that I was hoping to drive home a little bit during this webinar. Alejandro, you mentioned that MNOs can be considered a single point of failure. How does Teal compare in that sense, in compared to going direct to an MNO, right? How would Teal's platform be different than that?
So there's always the carrier themselves, right? So the Teal benefit is with the fact that most MVNOs run a core network, which is in and of itself a single point of failure. So you're working with the single point of failure at the MNO, and you're also working with a single point of failure at the roaming level, at the MVNO level. When you're working with Teal, you don't add another single point of failure. So if you're working with an MNO, you get both the flexibility of Teal, and you also don't add that single point of failure. With MVNOs that are using some sort of a multi-MZ, or really any MVNO that runs a core network is adding another single point of failure, potential single point of failure.
So some other questions here in the chat. Somebody who missed the beginning asked if we covered how we're addressing interoperability.
Interoperability in what sense? Is there potentially more context to that with devices, with networks?
Why don't we cover both how eSIM enables customers to become both technology agnostic, but as well as carrier agnostic. Because someone's just said networks.
Okay, so
yeah, and
go
I think
ahead,
it
Dean.
also can be addressed in the fact that the wireless protocols today that have been built after 2017 support eSIM. So there's interoperability built in most all devices built today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's the device side, right, where the device interoperability is governed by GSMA and 3GPP, and the carriers are themselves governed by GSMA. So thanks to the common standard, interoperability hasn't really been an issue when it comes to at least Teal's experience.
Another question here: how does Teal deal with permanent roaming in regulated countries?
Yeah, I can take this one. That is an interesting concept, right? Teal is a marketplace of credentials. So we have some credentials that have permanent roaming allowed in countries, and we have other credentials that do not. So depends on the country, depends on the credential. I know, it's no secret that Brazil, Turkey, Canada, Australia, and some others, the UAE, are usually hot topics. I would say that with Teal, we have all of those covered with credentials that can provide you permanent roaming access in country.
And, to add to what Alejandro had mentioned and what we talked about earlier in our discussion, is that Teal is an identity management platform. And with that, we're unlike an MVNO who's creating a multi-IMSI roaming solution. Teal is a identity management platform that is integrating with operators across the world, providing native connectivity. This is direct access to the mobile network operator, which of course is not going to have a roaming restriction when the PLMN is the PLMN of the mobile network operator. It is not a roaming credential that's going to get blacklisted. So with Teal utilizing native connectivity across various operators across the world, and we continue to integrate with more and more operators. So we would advocate on those attending the call to bring us those use cases and those requirements. And we would gladly, if we don't have native connectivity in the location that you're looking to deploy, we would gladly work with that mobile network operator, because again, Teal is a friendly to the mobile network operator, since our premise is to provide more native operator credentials across the world, and our integration is of no cost to the mobile network operator. Teal is an open platform that allows that full integration into our platform, providing our customers with the benefit of utilizing a SIM SKU that allows you the control and the identity to select the carrier of your choice without worrying about those roaming restrictions of mobile virtual network operators.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you everyone for your questions. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on connecting robots everywhere. We will be following up with everyone who attended today with a recording of today's webinar that will also be available on demand. For more information on Teal, be sure to visit us online at www.tealcom.io, and please reach out to a Teal IoT expert to find out if eSIM technology is right for your business. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.